Welcome to The Usual Suspects, the podcast panel where we bring together some of the most dynamic voices in childcare to talk real, sometimes messy, always important topics affecting our industry and our hearts. Think of this as your backstage pass to honest conversations about what it really means to run a childcare business today. I'm your host and moderator, Adrienne Bradley, and I'm thrilled to kick off this first episode with a fantastic group of panelists who bring a wealth of experience, insight, and passion to the table. Before we dive in, let me introduce the folks who will be sharing their stories and expertise today. First up, we have Erica Sicogio. I hope I said that right. A childcare trailblazer, powerhouse business coach, and speaker who's redefining leadership in early education. As the fearless host of the Childcare Directors Chair podcast and owner of multiple thriving childcare centers, Erica is all about empowering directors to lead with clarity, confidence, and heart. She's on a mission to help childcare professionals step fully into their leadership roles and create impact that lasts far beyond the classroom. Welcome, Erica. Next, we have Roxanne Ferrari, the owner of Ferrari Bookkeeping Services, a firm dedicated to helping small business owners, especially daycare providers, gain clarity and confidence in their finances. Known for being approachable, responsive, and detail-oriented, she goes far beyond the numbers to truly understand each client's business and goals. Outside of work, Roxanne is a proud mom, grandmom, animal lover, and game enthusiast who enjoys everything from card games to board games with family and friends. Our next panelist is Denitra Scott, the founder of the Play Suite, where she helps childcare center owners create thriving, mission-led businesses rooted in play, care, and purpose. With over 25 years in early childhood education, she brings a fresh, human-centered approach to business strategy. Dee's work is all about building programs that feel good for everyone, owners, staff, and families alike, while championing wellness and advocacy at the heart of it all. Our next panelist is Leandra Henderson, a newly licensed home-based childcare provider and the owner of Kingdom Citizens Childcare and Preschool. She is passionate about helping parents break through the barriers of life to achieve goals. She is a God-fearing entrepreneur, adventurous, and excited for what's to come. And of course, you know me, Adrienne Bradley from the Daycare Q&A show and thrivingchildcare.com, where I'm passionate about empowering childcare providers to run strong, sustainable businesses without losing sight of why they started in the first place. I'm a longtime advocate for childcare providers, and I bring a mix of real-world experience, hard-won lessons, and a knack for asking the questions others are thinking. When I'm not helping providers run stronger businesses through thrivingchildcare.com, I'm probably at a local outdoor concert with my husband of 35 years, spending time with my family, crafting, or thrifting. All right. First, welcome to you all, and thanks so much for being here. I'm super excited. Can you tell?
Thank you for having us.
Yes, I just love it. I've been dreaming about this for a really long time, and I'm just so glad to start it off with the four of you. And I know this is going to be great. This is going to be great. So let me start with today's topic is one that's close to all of our hearts and sometimes sparks a little healthy debate. Is childcare a business or a calling? And what happens when you treat it like one? So this is a question that gets at the heart of what we do every day, balancing passion and purpose with the practical realities of running a business. We're going to talk about the challenges, the mindset shifts, and what it really takes to thrive in this industry. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's get started. Okay. This is a question I'll be posing to all of us, but we're just going to start off here. It says, if you had to describe your relationship with childcare business in one word today, what would it be and why? So let's start with you, Erica. What word would you choose when you think of a childcare business? What word? One word.
Exciting.
Exciting. That's
Mhm.
good. Why?
Every day is different. You never
Mm,
know what, right? You never know what you're gonna come across. I love Mondays. I love new possibilities. So I'm just always very optimistic, and I'm
mhm.
excited to see what I can build with my team.
Oh, that's
Yeah. So it's cool to see something that you've created that
mhm.
grew from a business plan or a thought that you had in the middle of the night. I'm sure my friend there, Miss Henderson, can agree with that, right? Something that you thought about to watch it come to life with all of the hard work.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think exciting is the word, even after 26 years.
I love that. I love that. After 26 years, too. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Roxanne, what would be your word when you think of childcare business?
Wow. It's not, you can't say just one word. But I would think I love the idea it's learning.
Mm,
And it's not only learning for the teachers and the administrators, but the schools for the kids.
mhm,
I think they are learning from the teachers, but the teachers are also learning from them
mhm.
because, they come to it into the world, they don't know anything, so everything that they're knowing they're learning, and the stuff that comes out of their mouths
Yeah.
just to learn their perspective. And I think as we get to be adults, we tend to lose a lot of that curiosity about things, and we have too much fear of making the mistakes, looking like idiots, where they're just so carefree. So it's learning for everybody,
Mhm.
and that's my thoughts.
That's good. That's good. It's so true. So true. Leandra, what would be your word when you think about your childcare business?
Okay,
I'm all excited to hear this from you.
when you first posed the question, the word courage came to mind, but another word that just came to my mind is passion. I
Mhm.
think because what's going to keep you empowered through this, because yes, it does take courage to start out. I mean, it's a whole faith walk having to start your own business of any sort, right? So it's like, okay, you're being bold at this moment, you're taking what comes to your mind, right, and really trying to put it together. And so with that, I can see that implemented right as you're doing your day-to-day work, working with children and parents, having that courage to state what the policies are, right? So that aspect, and then also the passion keeps you going, because your passion, that's what's going to empower you. If you don't really want to do this anymore, if you in your mind give up, you're like, your
Yeah.
perspective, that's gonna thrust you the other way. So I
Yeah.
think I think passion is a big part of, again, it has to go back to your heart, right? Like having the right mindset. Like, do you really want to help families, or that's what's going to keep your attitude calm in those moments, right? Where if like someone's
Yeah.
something, or so
Yeah. That's a good word. That it is a good word because if you don't have passion, doesn't matter after that. It just doesn't matter. So that was good. That was good. D, what would be your word when you think about childcare or childcare business? What would be your one word? See if she, I know she's working on a project. So if she can't chime in, I'll go next. How about that? I'll go next. So my word is evolving because for me, my relationship with childcare business has changed over the years, right? First as in the trenches as a childcare provider for 20 plus years, but then, moving into a role of more supporting childcare providers. So it's kind of evolved for me. It wasn't easy. I have a blog post that dropped today where I talked about how, it was a little hard to walk away, like Erica said, something you built for years and years and years. It's kind of hard to move out of that space. But then I kept it close because I'm still working in the childcare field. So for me, the word would be evolving. It would. But those were all great. That was really good, really revealing. Okay. Now let's talk about what we're here to talk about today, because is it a business or a calling? And does it even matter? So when you first got into childcare, I'm going to start with you, Erica. When you first got into childcare, did you see it more as a calling or a business? And has that changed, like from the time you first started to now?
Oh, that's a good one. Mine started as necessity, so it was not either. I had my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked in a whole different field, and I was like, oh, I didn't really want to leave my child with people I didn't know, and so
Mm-hmm.
I quit my job and started working at the child care center. Um, so I wouldn't say it was a calling. I definitely didn't wake up one day and go, "Oh, I think I want to be a teacher or a childcare owner." Um, but I always was in business. So I would say more business. I was always a business girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I took all my skills that I knew about business and
Mm-hmm.
applied them into my
Mm-hmm.
position as, at that time I worked as a after school van
Mm-hmm.
driver. Like, so I was like as low as the totem pole you could get.
Mm-hmm.
But very quickly was able to use all of my business skills. So I guess I guess business would be the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But that's changed over time. Like you said, that
Mm-hmm.
word evolve. I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about it now.
Mm-hmm.
But that wasn't how I started.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it kind of transitioned to more the business, would you say, or
I would
what would?
say I was always a business person. So I had a great understanding of business,
Mm-hmm.
but I also really, really, really loved my kid. And I knew how hard it was as a parent to leave my child with
Oh, yeah.
people that I didn't know. And so that immediately brought the two worlds together for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, if I wouldn't leave my kid here,
Yeah.
like that would be my gauge. So
Right.
I would say now it's a calling for me,
Now it's a
but
college.
yeah, now it is a calling for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. 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 What would you say, Leandra? You're just starting, so I'm serious. Everything you say, you're gonna see, we're all gonna be so excited to hear what you have to say. But what would you say? Would you say that you feel like it's a calling or a business, or where do you stand on that now, right
I
now?
definitely believe it's a calling. I think that there's a reason why I even had the inclination, right? Even why I even had the thought or the desire. Like there's a purpose to fulfill in this role.
Mhm.
And down the line, you never know like where I'll end up, right? But everything plays a purpose. Everything that you do, no matter what position you play, it all works together at the end of the day. So I believe this is definitely a calling. And I think if you've been called to it clearly, then you can conquer it. So I definitely believe it's calling.
Um, Roxanne, working with childcare providers, do you find that for what would you say their perspective would be? Would you feel like it would be when you're working with them, does it feel like they have more of a sense of a calling, or do they have the business sense?
It's a combination, and it's working with them to help them to understand that it really has to be a combination of both.
Mhm.
Because as with any business owner, you're doing what you're passionate about. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Right.
Because you're going to hate, getting up and doing anything. So, yes, it's a passion.
Mhm.
But in order for them to continue serving and doing their passion, they have to have the business sense. Because
Mhm.
if they can't take care of themselves and be making the money that they need to support
Mhm.
themselves as well as the staff that they're bringing in and continuing, they're going to lose that passion.
Right.
So you have to bring the two of them together in order for them to continue
Right.
doing what is so badly needed, and both for the parents and for the kids. So
Absolutely.
I hate to see any of them leave because of the business part of it. So
Because they don't
it's,
have that. Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think that if you don't Well, you have to have the passion. You absolutely have to have the passion just to start in this. You do, because a weekend you'll kill yourself. You know what I mean? If you don't have the passion for it. But it will become burdensome if you don't have the business sense to keep the business sustainable. Okay. Because it will leach into, other parts of your life. It's a lot of time involved, right, Erica? I mean, I'm talking 12-hour days, and that's just with the kids, I mean, then there's the cleaning, the cooking, the shopping, and all of this. You have to have a passion to keep that going. But if that business acuity isn't developed, it can start to feel really heavy and really just, I don't know, what would be the word? You know what I mean? It's just it sucks the life out of it. It sucks the passion out of it, right?
Yep. Yes, and you lose your drive to do it, and you become angry and frustrated
Right.
because it's you're carrying too much of stuff. And as I've had people say that, again, you need to feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you're taking away from your family because the business isn't sustaining itself,
Right.
then that creates a whole nother set of issues and tension, and that's where the burnout comes. And that's
Right.
when you start losing those that are really meant to be working with children. They can't, it's just not supporting them. And I hate to see that happen.
Right. And we've seen that. We've seen that in recent years. We've seen that people step away. So do you think the idea of childcare as a calling is helping or hurting providers? If Eric, I know you speak to providers and you train providers, and I don't know, sometimes I feel like as a childcare provider in this caring field, we feel guilty about being that businesswoman or having that business sense, like Roxanne is talking about, because we're in this caring field. And if we don't resonate, I can't even tell you how many times I've written an article about raising tuition or the need to raise tuition or something, and I'll get flack back. Oh, well, I'm doing this because it's a calling and it's a passion for me. And it's like, we don't seem to, well, a lot of us don't seem to understand that it needs to be a profitable situation, or you're not going to be able to continue to invest in your business to keep it at the quality that you want it to be, I mean, what do you think, Erica? Do you think it's more of a
Yeah,
helping?
I was just going to say that here's a way to look at it. When you charge the tuition that you really need to charge to keep quality, right? If you're doing it, it's your calling to help children. Think of how much more you can help children in your communities if you have more resources, right? It allows you to be able to give a tuition break for families who need it. It allows you to pay your teachers better. It allows you to give benefits, because it's not always just the pay, it's the benefits. Like, I'm in New England, so we pay pretty high here, and our ratios are pretty low here, compared to most of the country. But it allows you to get more toys for the children and have supplies and all the things you need. So you're really shortchanging the kids and your families and your staff if you're not adequately financing your business. So I think you really, just like the passion in the business, it's like the chicken or the egg, what comes first? They you need both. You need both. I'm not saying you have to gouge families, but you definitely have to be able to charge what you need to be a sustainable business and be able to take care of the people in your care. I think that, yeah.
I love that. I love that. What's your take on that, Leandra?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question one more time? Is it about?
Sure. Yeah. Do you think that the idea of childcare as a calling is helping or hurting providers?
So you're saying if those who are, they're focused on the calling so much that they don't have the
Right.
business aspect of it.
Right.
And yeah, that's, I think that's part of a problem that many people have, right? Like you feel like this is a calling that you want to do this particular thing, but you lack to prepare for it. There's a season of preparation we have to do for any and everything. Like if I want to be a doctor one day, I have to go to school. I have to get a degree. That's preparation. So it's the same thing if you're opening a business. Whatever business you want to open, there's a season of preparation. Start taking business classes, start taking marketing classes, and all things business related to prepare. So as a calling, yeah, you will start to burn out because you didn't prepare and you maybe are not realizing that you need to get some things under your belt to help you build a better foundation so that you can last longer. Um, so it's the lack of preparation. So you can still see it as a calling, but you have to prepare for what you're being called to do right now.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree. So, how has
Hey, Erica,
can you hear me?
yeah, Erica wants to share something.
Oh, Erica, my
I
bad.
do. I'm sorry. I'm gonna try to not take over the show, but there's one thing I do want to. There's one thing I want to say is
Yeah.
and I love what she just said about being prepared, right? And I think that is so important. So I just want to live there for a minute. You are the leader of your business and you're the leader of your school. So if you're driving the van and counting, how many snacks go in the snack bag, you're not really necessarily leading. And I think it's important that, as she said, that preparation, being the best leader that you can be. And so it takes those tools. So I think it's really important that when you're planning out your business or you're growing your business, that you remember your role within that business. And I don't say that in a vain way because I will do anything that my staff do, but that shouldn't be your day to day. Your day to day should be focused on, getting the best prices for things with your vendors, making sure your staff have the not only the supplies that they need, but the training and supports that they need, being a good role model, all those things. Your leadership is really essential to your business. And so I think that that's something that we really have to, in that preparation, ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be? How do I want to show up? How do I want to be present for my team? So I think that's where you got to invest your time.
Yeah.
Now I'll shut up.
And
No.
can I throw something else in there also?
Sure.
As you're thinking about it, it's also what quality do you want your daycare center to be at? Do you want it to be just the one where the kids are coming in and yeah, they've got some coloring books and maybe you'll do a project here and there, but they're going to watch cartoons all day long or, running amok? Or do you want to be known for the center that has this schedule of things and you're providing good learning tools, whether it's not only learning the ABCs and that, but social aspects of learning how to share and how to wait your turn and please and thank you. Yes, the parents are teaching that at home, but they also need that reinforcement because they're with you all day long. What type of program do you want? And if you don't care, then yeah, you don't have to charge a lot, and you're going to get people that they don't care either. But if you want to be known as the daycare center that is awesome and is working with their kids and teaching them stuff, the parents will be willing to pay for that because that's important to them. So it's your decision, it's your business.
Right. And you know what? And I say that every week on my podcast. I say, on the Daycare Care Nation, it's your business. Absolutely is your business, is your decisions. But you're absolutely right. And they're right, Leandra. That is part of it, a big part of it that I think a lot of us, when we first start, don't realize that we need more preparation. The calling, that's a good start. That's a real good start. That's that passion word too. That's a good start. You need more. Okay. That's the beginning. Okay. That's what's going to sustain you moving forward. That's your why, right? But we need something to back that up. We absolutely do. Okay. So now I want to get into a little bit about the fact that you can't pour from an empty cup. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but you can't pour from an empty cup or an underpriced tuition rate, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. Why, I'm going to talk to you about this first, Roxanne. Why do so many providers underprice themselves? And I know you've dealt with, you have clients that are childcare providers that find themselves in this situation. Why do you think that happens?
Well, I know the first part is they've probably early on when they were just getting started, they had a number of parents that were telling them, well, that's too much. I can't. And they leave. And they get to a point where they need to have money coming in. So I think a lot of times it's more out of desperation, and probably has a lot to do with what Leandra brought up, is not having the proper planning at the beginning, and knowing that when you're getting started, to make sure that you have a few months worth of expenses already in savings, knowing that the minute you open up, you are not going to be fully, all the tuition is completely, however many you are licensed to do, you're going to have that many, and they're all going to pay top dollar. We all know that don't happen. So I think, but probably the biggest is the not planning properly for that slow start, and to be able to stand strong in what your prices are and the value that you're going to bring, because you will get those parents that recognize that and are willing to pay that, but it doesn't always happen overnight. And so, yeah, they'll take whatever, and and then they hurt, and then it gets harder to raise those prices. So
you're absolutely right. And I hear this so much. This question comes up so much on the Daycare Q&A show, but I want to tell you guys something. Okay. I have a story. I have had situations when I was running my childcare, and that's what I mean about this caring guilt thing that we carry, right? I have had single moms say, I'm really struggling with this and that and the other, and I feel the need to be overly compassionate or whatever. I'm okay, and I'm working. And I kid you not, pull up the next day in my driveway with a new BMW. You know what I'm saying? I had that happen. I had another time where, not realizing, I was talking to my son about it. This was years ago. This one mom, she was going through this period of time, and he said, Mom, people have hard times, but hard times don't last always. And I didn't put a limit on the reduced tuition that I gave her. And she said, oh, Miss A, I just bought a house. And I'm not trying to say that she shouldn't be able to buy a house or that BMW or that car, but where you see where the priority is, right? But I allowed that as the business owner, as the leader of my business. And that means no matter if it's just you, okay? Even if you don't have a staff, you're still the business owner, right? You're supposed to watch over and caretake for the business. So those were my hard lessons, but I had that happen. And you're absolutely right. Erica, I know you have something to offer right here on this topic.
We've all been there. We've all done it. I service a low to middle income families here, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a person that owns a center who hasn't had a story like yours where you felt maybe a little taken advantage of. Unfortunately, yes, we wear our hearts on our sleeves, and it's something that you learn over time. And I have to say, my daughter, who's now 26, actually is much better at it than I am. And so we have figured that out because folks know who is better at it than the others. So Haley's like, no, mom, I'm going to do the tuition collection, not
Mhm.
you.
Mhm.
She does not mess around on Wednesdays. Those late fees go. Cause again, I, I like you, I care and I love, but your son is right. And I do think there's something to be said because our children have watched over years of people
Yes.
take advantage of their parents.
Right.
And so I too have many stories like that. I
Yeah.
am much better at it now, but
Mhm.
it was my child who was like, no, mom, we're not doing
Yeah.
this anymore. You work too hard. You
Right.
work too long. So
Right.
again, we're real honest here on this show, right?
Right.
People, nobody has it all figured out at first. So
Mm.
let me tell you that, Ms. Henderson, you are not going to have it all figured out at first. And
No.
just, and I don't think there's ever a time because we're always evolving, right?
Right.
Business is changing, the industry is changing right now.
Mhm.
And so we have to be much more savvy because now we're competing against free. But I do
Right.
love what Roxanne said too is you can buy a car, and I love her last name, so I'm going to play on this. You can buy a car, you can buy a Yugo or whatever, or a Hyundai, or you can buy a Ferrari, right?
Right.
And when you go to the Ferrari, right, nobody's negotiating, no one's giving a discount. You know, you're paying top dollar because you're getting the best of the best. So this
Right.
is where you position yourself in the
Mhm.
market of being the best of the best, whether it's
Mhm.
accreditation, your state's quality rating, you teach every kid, to write their name and know all their numbers and, whatever, your brand is, be the best at it. Figure out what
Mhm.
it is and be the very best at it. And then you can
Mhm.
charge that Ferrari price,
Yeah.
right?
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that.
But we've
I
all done it, guys. So if you're
yeah.
listening now, we know you've either done it or you're doing it now. So
It's
if you're
true.
still doing it now, figure it out or get one of your kids to tell you you're messing up, mom.
Your kids will tell you too. They will absolutely tell you. Something I was thinking, and then I'm gonna move on to the next question, but I was thinking, you know, you know, outside in corporate America, if you were going for a job, right? You know what bills you have, right? So I can't take this job that is not going to pay me enough for the bills that I have. So same thing with your business, and I hope that I didn't muddle the waters here, but how much when I'm coaching clients, I'm like, what are your expenses? Okay. We need to know that. And I'm sure you know that, Roxanne. I'm working with childcare providers. You probably have to call that to their attention. We need to not just be covering expenses, that's the start. But we need to exceed that or the business cannot grow, right? And this is something that, I talk to new providers about too, because how do I price? Where do I price? And looking at, maybe some competition and pricing that way and so forth. But there has to be some real understanding of what it takes to run your particular business, not my business, your business, right? Erica's business was different than my business. Her expenses, her whole setup is different than mine, right? Is that something that you go over with providers, Roxanne, about how to structure their rates?
Oh, absolutely. You're looking, and it's a combination of all of those things. Is knowing how many are you licensed for, and
Mhm.
then it's working it from there. Going, okay, well, what are your expenses? And we're looking at your solid fixed expenses,
Right.
but you do have to take into effect that okay, you've got toys and other kinds of equipment. You've got to recognize, first of all, that's not cheap, and they're not going to need to be replaced and upgraded at times. You need to be having a slush fund, that you can put off the side so that you can get that new stuff, knowing that every school year there's going to be all the new supplies for all the new books for, what's going on, anything that's changed.
Mhm.
And things can only be used for so long. So
Right.
it's remembering not only what we do every single day with making sure that there's the food for the kids and all of that kind of stuff, but there's all of that other stuff, insurance and
Right.
things that they tend to forget about because their concern is, well, I got to make sure the kids have their food. I got to make sure that they got their activities.
Mhm.
Okay, that's just a small piece of it. And so, yes, they have to have the extra money, but also for themselves, because they ain't
Right.
working for free.
Right.
You know, you got to cover your own expenses as well. And you're going to want to be able, you talked about, you know, the mental health, that you need to be able to take a vacation here and there.
Right.
So those all need to be built into what you're charging, because as you said, you can't keep pouring into people from an empty cup. And if you've gone empty, you're closing your doors.
You're closing your doors.
Can I
Absolutely.
say something?
Yeah.
Can I was gonna say, what Roxanne was mentioning at the beginning, as far as why, right, providers do this. And so I had my first experience with this and I started to settle. And you know, Adrienne, I told you from the beginning, I had a set price, right?
Right.
Now, a big part of this, what I thought about when I realized it's self-worth, a lot of it comes down to that too, because we start to question, well, am I really worth what I'm charging? Am I, well, are the parents going to think that I'm worth this? Or are they going to think that I'm, you know, but it comes like you have to be confident in what you offer. And so I came down from my price. I'm like, and I told myself I wasn't going to do that. Right. But, um, and I'm just like, man, and it happens so fast. So I just want to add that in there because I really do think it comes down to self-worth as well.
Yeah. And confidence, right? I mean, Erica and I can tell you, and probably Roxanne from her clients that she works with, over the years, we had to progress to a certain point. You know what I mean? These are lessons that's your lesson. I told you about the BMW. That was my lesson. The house, that was my lesson. Okay. At that point, you know, I had a conversation with Adrienne to say, okay, that won't happen again. Right. But I had to go through that. I had to go through that. And not to say that I'm not trying to be compassionate. And just like Erica said, her daughter has more strengths in that area. I built it up over time to know what I was going to be sacrificing. It wasn't just me. Okay. It was the business. And I'm the caretaker of the business. So now I have less to work with. No, and you know what else? I don't know if we were going to touch on this today or not, but not everyone is your ideal client. I know we've talked about that, Leandra, right? Not everyone, and it's hard when you're first starting out because you need clients. Let's not lie. You need clients. But we don't need the wrong clients.
Right.
Okay? And we don't need a client that's going to run us out of business either. Right? So but these are the lessons, you know, these are the lessons that will build up that confidence, and pretty soon you will be confident in what you have to say and what you have to offer. So you will not be so knee jerk and ready to compromise or what was the word you used? Settle, you know, because it's not just you settling, it's the business, it's the future of your business, right? You know what I'm saying? These are long hours, you know what I mean? And you're not getting paid minimum wage even for the hours, because that, you know, but that was good. That was really good. That was a good. So let me see. Where am I? So I talked about raising the rates and so forth, but what's the biggest money mindset block you've had to overcome with your business? I know we just kind of touched on that, but maybe for me, it was charging late fees, charging fees in addition to, okay? Because we just talked about parents struggling and whatnot. And so for the longest, I had this way too liberal, what would you call it? Grace period. You know what I mean? They were supposed to pay on Monday, but you know, if they paid on Wednesday, then no late fees, right? And I've talked about this to anybody and everybody who would listen. I was going to the bank like 5 times a week because people were paying me whenever and whatever, you know what I mean? And when you think about it, it was costing me more because I'm gas and the time to go to the bank, right? So it's costing me more and they're paying me the same or less. And I finally had to get to a point where I was confident enough to say, okay, it's due by this date, not a minute after. And if it's not paid by this date, this is also due. And don't you know that stopped all of that shenanigans. Okay. But I had enabled all of that to happen, right? Because I felt like, oh, they need this grace, they're having a hard time, whatever. But I was not standing on my own policies. So I'm wondering what kind of mindset block did you maybe have over something to do with your tuition, um, or money when it comes to your business? Would you say, Erica?
I don't know if I had a mindset block. I would say I think more about my business structure and the ages that I'm going to serve and square footage and what the cost is for an infant compared to a school ager. So I think my mindset is more on the way that I build my business. And I think the other thing is we talk about growth and scale, but I want to talk about the part that people no one ever talks about. I've scaled up. I've had 6 childcare centers and a dance studio. I scaled down. I scaled down because once you really get really, really big, I felt for me that I wasn't able to give the same level of care, quality, knowing my customers, knowing my kids. That was important to me because that was part of my why. So I think bigger isn't always better. I would say that was part of my mindset. Bigger isn't always better. And think about when you're building out your business, what truly makes sense too, because for the longest time we would take infants as quote unquote loss leaders and say, well, we don't make money now as infants, but we know when they're preschool we'll make some money on that. Well, you don't have that reassurance anymore because now there's state funded pre-K throughout the country. So you do not want to put all your eggs in the basket where you're going to suck up the loss for an infant and a toddler and maybe fingers crossed you'll make it on preschool and school age. Those days are gone. So make sure that the ages that you're serving actually make you money now, not in 2 years from now.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. Roxanne, would you say your clients have money mindset issues that they need to come, any money mindset blocks that they come to you with that you kind of have to dispel and help them understand why they need to change their mindset around it?
As with any business owner, yes, that they've got that, they're getting paid weekly or they're doing it bi-weekly. However, I've come across it's either weekly or bi-weekly. And the importance of that, because, for lack of better terms, it's like your paycheck. You're getting paid from your clients. This is when the money's coming in. You've got bills that are due all month long. And just like we do on our personal side, that we're looking at, okay, I've got everything scheduled out because you've got this money coming in, every week or every 2 weeks. And when they're not paying you, that's messing up your budget, whether it's for you personally or it's taking away from the center to be able to provide that. Okay, now you got to cut back on some of the food or the snacks or whatever, and you don't want to be doing that. So for them to learn that it's very important that you stick to that and stick to your policy, something that you led to there, Adrienne, where you weren't pushing on for the late fees and all that. That is just important. All businesses, if you're late on your rent, they're going to charge a late fee. You're late on your mortgage, you're late on your credit card, they all charge a late fee. So the daycare center is just as important, if not more important than all of those bills. So pay it on time, or you have to pay the late fees also. But that is something that I've had a mix of. There's some that, oh, they don't care. You ain't paying. Your kid isn't coming back in until you pay. Because I'm not working for free.
Oh, yeah.
It's policies, standing by those policies. And I think that that's making sure that they've got their parents' handbook written out and they stick to it. Just like, with your kids. If you don't stick to what you tell them you're going to do, they're going to keep the limits and pushing the limits and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They'll keep trying you. They'll keep trying you.
yep.
And I've written before, as the provider, you don't be the first one to break your own policies. Don't be the first one to break your own rules. And they're there for a reason. You put them there for a reason, whether it's a licensing based mandate or it's a business decision. They're there for a reason. But then we feel like somebody challenges it, we have a need to compromise that policy. And no, 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 no. Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And you're right. I actually, another story, I had another parent say, oh, they were late on their tuition, but they had to pay their layaway. I'm like, what? Yeah, they had to pay their layaway. And I just was like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? And it's like prioritize. So, like I said, over time, I got the confidence to let them know from the beginning, this was non-negotiable. Okay. The tuition was a non-negotiable issue. Okay. So it is what it is. If this isn't, and you'll have some come in with real negotiation skills and think that this is something that they can bargain down. I had some come and tell me what this one over here was charging, what this one was charging, and I should be somewhere in that range. And I was like, no, you need to go back over there or there. You know what I'm saying? Because maybe that's what fits their budget, and that's fine. Because if this is going to be a push and pull from the beginning,
Right.
that's a problem. That's a problem. And a lot of those things can be stopped right then and there. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't have to be uncomfortable or what have you. There's stores that maybe I don't have the budget to go to today. I go to the other store. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So I like that. I like that conversation. So let's talk about what happens when you start treating your business, your childcare, like it's a business. Okay. What would you say are the most common misconceptions people still have about childcare providers when it comes to professionalism? Erica, what would you say? I mean, I know you work with a lot of new and seasoned providers.
Yeah.
And what would you say about?
I feel like the biggest challenge in our industry is our own industry. I hate to say, right?
Mhm,
There's like this hierarchy of, oh, you work in I want to use the word childcare. I don't normally use that word. Oh, you work
mhm,
in a childcare, so you're not a real teacher, right? If I say I'm a teacher or I'm an owner, oh, you're in a daycare, and then a lot of times the next question will be like, oh, so you do it in your home, and there's nothing wrong with that. No, I have a center, I have a business, but I do think sometimes it's our own industry. We do it to ourselves. There's like this like hierarchy. Like if you own a family child care center, family child care home, you're still a business owner, the same as me. Mine's just a bigger scale, but it's the same. You still have to do the same work, the same license, the same everything.
yeah.
And I think that sometimes the folks who work in our industry don't recognize it as a profession. Um, so there's that. Even
Mhm,
using words like daycare or childcare. Nope, it's
mhm,
an early learning center. If you're
mhm,
teaching, it's an early learning center, right? So
mhm.
I think we have to be cognizant of the way that we present what it is that we do because we're so divided,
Mhm.
and so I think it's important that we start to really think about the language that we use when we're talking to people. I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest challenge, and then helping professionalize the staff that are new that are coming
Mhm.
into the field because there's lots of folks who are new. There's a lot of churn
Right.
with employees, so helping
Right.
them understand that this is a profession. I'll
Mhm.
say this one last thing, and I'll be quiet. So when people come on an interview, right, a lot of times they're going to say, when I say why do you want to work here? I
Mhm.
love children, or I have five cousins. Listen, I like horses. It doesn't make me a jockey, right? This is a job that requires skill. It requires training. I see you laughing there, Roxanne, but it's true, right? I don't know any other place or any other profession that requires actual training where somebody will walk in. I know I'm not a dentist. I would not walk in tomorrow looking at an Indeed ad and say, hey, I'd like to be the new dental hygienist. I'm not qualified for that. So, there are entry level positions in our field, of course. And I'm being a little silly right now, but I guess what I want people to really just come away with is we have to work together to professionalize the field and educate people on what it is we do. And so I think that that's important. So that would be my soapbox of the day.
That's good.
Well, I will, and I want to send that to you too, Roxanne. But I will say this: some of the proudest moments I've had as a childcare provider was having former clients come back and say, Miss A, what you do here is important. I mean, like they had this epiphany, you know what I mean? When they were coming here, it wasn't that way, but they left and they either saw whatever they saw or they're not getting it anymore. I don't know, but they all of a sudden had appreciation for what I put into the business, their child, the years that we spent together. You know what I mean? And that's one of the proudest business moments that I had as a business owner. But Roxanne, when it comes to your clients, what would you say? Do they feel? What have you noticed about the professionalism or the lack thereof when it comes to the field of childcare?
I think one of the things that I've noticed, and maybe it's a mindset for a lot of them, is for those that have decided to start their business in their home because they're just getting started out. They're going through all of the the licensing and all of that. And let's face it, as I'm sure, Leandra, you're learning, doesn't matter whether you're at a facility or doing it in your home, there's still a lot of, you've got to go through the licensing and all of that. There's all those expenses. And I think where some of it comes from is that some of them that are doing it in their homes have, I don't know if it's that they've been made to feel that they're not as important or as professional as the ones who have a center because you're just doing it in your home. So you're just somebody who's looking to make some extra money on the side, and this is what you've chosen to do. And that couldn't be any farther from the truth. That, I've talked with those that they started in their home. They went and they opened up a center because they were growing. And just as you, Erica, said that you started scaling back, they said that, you know what? There were too much other stuff with having the center, and they pulled it back into their home because that's where they felt that they were being their best, that they could give the most to the students and the kids that they had. So it's there has to be, and I think it comes from all sides, is that the respect to all of them, whether you have centers or you're doing it out of your, I work out of my home. So, I mean, come on. There's a lot of people that have chosen to work from their home. And so those center owners, they deserve the same respect, and they have to find and hold that confidence in themselves and not let others demean them because they're working out of their home. You can do just as much, if not better, for those kids if they went to a center. So for you, Leandra.
Absolutely. And like I was saying earlier, that confidence will come. I mean, there'll be a day where, Erica probably knows her center inside and out. I knew every moment of the day what was happening. You know what I mean? When I was running my childcare, and with that comes a confidence of knowing your program, right? Because you might meet people like what Roxanne was saying, and I've had other providers tell me of some parents being quite disrespectful and saying, "Oh, I have a real job. You don't." Now, mind you, they're leaving their child with you. I don't, doesn't compute. You need to have some respect for somebody you're leaving your child with. But over time, and it does take some time, and that's okay. And if you have to talk yourself up, if you have to talk that confident person, just like when you're going on a job interview or you're meeting somebody, you talk yourself up so that you don't become a total blithering idiot in front of them. You know what I mean? But it takes a minute. It takes a minute. I know it did for me. So let's talk about it. How can we shift the narrative? And should we try? I mean, when it comes to the way childcare is looked at, I know that there was a childcare provider that was actually down the street from me when I was running my childcare. She was 2 blocks over and up the street. And I remember talking to her because she was having some issues with licensing, and I would talk to her. And I got some feedback from some other people that she said, "Oh, Adrienne, she's just all business. She's all business," as though that was a bad, she thought she was, what would be the word? She thought she was saying something disparaging. And I took it as a badge because I was like, at that point, I need to be about the business. If I'm not about my business, the business won't exist, right? But she took it as, I was way too business-like and so forth and so on. So to Erica's point, I think a lot of us feel that way. And that's unfortunate because I know it must make it hard to make that business sustainable if, like when I'm talking to providers, I'm trying to convince them that you're running a business, right? A business, right? And to have to get them to do that mindset shift. Hopefully you're coming in with that mindset, Leandra. But what can we do? What do you do, Roxanne, when you have a new client that may be a new childcare provider, and just to give them the understanding that this is a business and it's completely okay for it to be a business and a business mindset around it?
Well, it's starting out. I mean, yes, we always have the discussion of why they did it. I always like to find out what their goals are. What are they? Why did they do this? What are they taking away from this? And everybody has different reasons. But I like to remind them the importance of, when we go through and we're looking at making sure how they're priced out, that they're staying within what they're licensed to do, all of their expenses that they're going to have to cover on the business side as well as personally. Because just as we had talked about earlier, that you wouldn't take a job if it wasn't going to cover your expenses. And while we don't like to think about this as a job, but it's your profession. And your profession should be able to sustain what you're doing, and also yourself. So it's no different than somebody who's a salesperson or like myself, doing accounting, that I need to be making sure that I am able to continue growing my business and covering all of because otherwise I can't support my clients.
Right.
And so for this daycare center owner or early learning center provider, those kids are your clients. You need to be there for them, and you need to be the best person for them. So it is important to look at that. And I know a lot of them don't want to, but you start going through the list, and you got this, and how much is that going to cost you? You got this, how much? Because it's a business.
Right.
And I said, if you were going to go and get a job, if it's a job that requires skills, you have to learn those skills. You may have had to take some schooling. You're going to have to, maybe they require that you dress, and even
Right.
as the center owners, you're going to want to be dressed properly for these kids because they're looking up to you. So you still need to be presenting yourself, properly to them and being dressed. So it's all those little, there's so much that sometimes I get that they're kind of looking at me like, woman, you're nuts. But you're giving the impression that when parents come to, whether it's a center or to your home to interview with you, it's a two-sided interview. They're going to be looking at how is everything set up and how are you dressed? Because this is what their kid's going to be seeing 5 days a week. They want to be, and so you have to be presenting yourself that, yes, I'm a business owner and I'm serious. And I said, these are sometimes, but you got to think about them because it's a lot of times it's perception. It's that first impression that if the parents walk in and they don't like what you're wearing, they ain't going to be with you. And I know that sounds stupid, but it happens.
No,
I don't like that you had, I saw some dishes out there, you know, in your home. So no, you're not clean enough. So it's, and just remembering.
but you know, I like what you said about your own perception. I will tell you, I'm full of stories, right? I had a client that came, but they came so early, Erica, God was not awake. Okay. But I had agreed to this. Okay. This was an agreement. So, but I'm going to the door. I still got pajamas on. Well, I just got out of bed but I had made the agreement that they could come at this time. I needed to be up, face washed, teeth brushed, and in clothes. And I had a reckoning with myself about that. I was like, if I expect to be treated in a certain way, I need to present myself in a certain way. Okay. And that was a conversation I had with myself. So I got up 15 minutes early and made sure that when I went to the door, I was presenting myself as the business owner that I wanted to be. You know what I mean? So I totally agree. I totally agree. Sometimes it's just it's a conversation that we need to have with ourselves, if we're going to be if I was going out on a job, then how would I want to present myself? And that's how you show up, right? That's how you show up. So yeah, that's really good. Okay. Got a couple more, and then I know I want to end on a happy note. So I want to ask you guys, this is a lightning round. This is a real quick question. What's one thing you wish every parent, policymaker, or person on the outside knew about running a childcare business? I'll start with you, Leandra. What do you think?
That every parent should know?
It could be a parent, policymaker, person on the outside, whoever.
Wait, I can't wait, come back to me. I can't think of something right now.
Okay, I'll start with you, Erica.
What we do matters. Matters for right now and the future. It is not just our responsibility. It is a group effort. We need supports. We need supports from the families. We need them to, communicate and help us help them. I think policymakers need to understand what it is we do so they can make good policies that support children and families and programs. Yeah, I think that is really important that people understand that this is not just I bring Johnny to you from 9 to 5 and you do everything. Nope. Right. Learning it's the whole system. We're all very connected. And then I would say too to other professionals, like when one of us does bad, unfortunately, it's like all of us, right?
Yeah.
So you don't see any good stories. When's the good story? All you see is the crazy daycare lady on social media. I saw one today. I'm like, somebody show me the good stories because there's so many of us out there doing great work. And so I
Right.
think that's important. And don't wait for someone to toot our horn. We have to toot our own horn. We have to be our own mouthpiece, which is why we have mics, right? So and support each other. I think being supportive.
That's good. What about you, Roxanne?
Well, like Erica said, what they do, it does matter. And to remember that it is a partnership with the parents because you guys are shaping the next generation. It doesn't get more important than that. And policymakers and everybody needs to know that our children today are going to be the ones that are running this country, next generation around. It is very important that everybody is working together to teach them properly, to give them the good manners, and to have, you know, um, just that kids know that they matter. And they got to matter both at home and at daycare, at school, wherever. And so we all need to work together because otherwise it's not going to work.
I
So
love that. I love that. I love that. What say you, Leandra? What do you wish they knew?
I would kind of agree with both of you ladies. Not kind of, I do agree with both of you ladies. Um, and I would just say that the foundation that we set for kids, that we set for children is really, I feel like trying to figure out another word that's better than important, but I would just say really important. Um, Teaching them even basic skills. Like, look, we don't understand. Sometimes we'll see, adults act a certain way, but that stems from the foundation. Like, all of this goes all the way back. You have to understand, like, you're literally making and molding right now in early education. We're making and molding. And so what you have them around, how you talk to them, they're all going to, children, they just absorb. So they're going to repeat it. So we have to understand, they have to look at this as a serious, serious thing and something worth investing in, something worth ensuring that their children are in and growing and flourishing.
I love that. I love that. I would say that the full circle moment here, that I would want them to know about the passion that it takes to run this business and to have a business that is caring, and that, just like Roxanne said, what is that? Was that phrase, out of childcare, out of this industry, all the other industries are born. Everybody's going to come through early education, and we birthed that. So yeah, that was great. So I just want to thank you guys. Erica, do you have any way for people to reach you? Any projects you're working on right now? Let us know.
Well, I'm always working on a project, so there's never a time I'm not. I am launching a group, a coaching group, to help leaders within the field continue to grow. Um, it will be out in July, so I don't have all the deets to drop right now, but check out the Childcare Directors Share podcast, and you'll get details there. I do want to say one other really quick thing. We talked about growing the kids. I want those of you who are listening, think about your staff too. Grow your team. Grow those folks that are in the field too. If you have a wealth of knowledge, and I'm not just talking about my seasoned folks, because the young folks coming in too, you guys have a lot to contribute. I think growing our industry together from the inside is really important too. So I think that that's important. So that's my mission right now in life, is to help as many educators stay in the field and really thrive, not just the business part, but the human part.
That is so important. I love that. I love that. Roxanne, if people want to get in touch with you, how did they get in touch with you? Are you taking new clients?
yes, I am taking new clients, and I love, just as, what Erica said about, making sure to be investing in those of your staff. And I believe that even the owners that, investing some of not only the on the childcare side, but some of the business stuff, because you're bringing them up, and we hope that those that are working at these daycare centers helping out are someday going to want to open up their own. And it's important that they've not only got those skills for working with the kids, but also the business side. And because without a good business foundation, it's going to crumble. And I don't like to see any of that happen. I want to see new business owners thriving. And so I like to work very closely with them, making sure that they understand and they've got that foundation so that they can flourish, because we need all of them. So let's keep supporting all of them. We're all here for you. So
I love that. So how do people reach you, Roxanne? How?
The easiest way, they can go to my website, which is very easy, ferraribookkeepingservices.com, or you can email me at roxanne@ferraribookkeepingservices.com.
Okay. And I'll be sure to put that in the comments.
Yes.
Okay. Leandra, so tell us about where you are right now in your business.
I am working on getting full enrollment. So that's been my focus and stress at this point. I have a couple of inquiries. So seeing if they're going to enroll, we'll see. Like I said, I did lower my price, not because they asked, but I felt, how we're like looking at, "Hey, this might be too high for them," adjusting, right? So my fault. But so yeah, just waiting on to see if those two families enroll, and then kind of going from there, really getting trying to push more flyers, and that's been my life lately.
Okay. Okay. And I want to just double back and correct you. Not your fault, your lesson. That's what that was. That was your lesson. You will learn. This whole thing
Well,
of,
and for Erica, I am in California. I
oh
am in
yeah.
Southern California,
Mm.
where it's desert and hot.
Oh yeah. It is it's gonna get hotter.
Yes.
Well, I want to end this episode by thanking you, ladies, so much for being here for the inaugural episode of The Usual Suspects. I see this as a monthly installment to go alongside the daycare Q&A show, but I love the voices that you bring and the perspectives that you bring. So I hope you will come back for another episode. You're very welcome. I have had a blast, and I just wish you all well. And for our viewers, if you're wanting any information on how to reach our guests, I will have that in the comments and in the show notes. But thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and we will talk very soon, I'm sure. Thanks.
You.
Thank you. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode of the Daycare Q&A show. I hope it gave you clarity, encouragement, or even that little push you needed today. If you're looking for more support, tools, and real-life resources to help you grow your childcare business, I'd love to invite you to join us inside the Rise and Thrive Club. It's our member-only community just for childcare providers, where you'll get access to a growing library of done-for-you tools, exclusive training, monthly live Q&A calls, and so much more. And the best part, you don't have to do this alone. So whether you're just getting started or you've been in the game for years, there's a place for you inside the club. You can join us right now at thrivingchildcare.com/join-RTC. I can't wait to see you on the inside. And hey, if you like this episode, make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and share it with another provider who could use some encouragement today. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep thriving. I'll see you on the next episode.